tracking systems, we will come back. We've already gone out to industry comment with the RFP, RFQ, and those will return to us in the next few weeks. We will come to you as the board and seek approval to go out for track and systems in June because of the part of the ARA obligations. We will come back in August for the RFP, and we will later in the year, probably the fall time, come back to you and seek approval to announce and award the maintenance facility locations and operating control facilities and the HMF.
Mr. Chairman.
Roy. With regards to the tracking systems, can you just define again what is it that we're obligated to complete to be compliant with the ARA funding by December 31st of 22 with regards to track and or systems?
We need to have the track laid and be able to operate trains.
Okay.
No.
So where's the money coming for the systems?
We have the money in this budget enough to be able to complete the 119-mile segment. This is part of the budget.
Okay, and the reason then to...
Now, sorry. What is very clear, we've distinguished between what we need to have for the 119-mile segment, ARA requirements, and future spend, either north and south or other parts of Phase 1.
Okay, then, and then what's management's...
You need to turn on the mic. Turn on the mic.
Mic's on.
What's management's... what's management's approach then with going ahead with the systems at this point? If you can just explain that to us.
Well, with the approach, and this is part of the proposal we will come to you with, is to combine the tracking systems because it's logical to have that as one package. It also has, we are coming to you with a proposal, and it's still under review. We're still going through it, and until we have industry feedback, we may change. But current thinking is that we'll come back with a 30-year maintenance O&M contract as part of that. So therefore, if we combine those, it's a single responsibility. There's long-term life cycle cost savings, and that's the purchase. There would be notice to proceed with various parts of the additional work as and when we do it. Okay.
The systems that we're talking about control systems as well, correct?
Yeah, electrification controls everything that we would need to.
As I understand it, I mean, one of the tours that I did in Japan, the systems are integrated with the rolling stock. So that entity could be then eliminated from participating in this procurement. Is that correct? Because if they offer rolling stock and systems combined,
It really, we need to seek the industry comments and advice, and if they come back with alternative procurement strategies, we should consider them. But currently, tracking systems are combined, trains are separate. But yes, I'm fully aware that in certain situations, trains are combined, full system provisions. In other major programs, they've gone out separately.
One last question in regards to this. The tracking system is going to depend, I mean, we have to lay this track for 119 miles.
Yes.
And the reason we're doing this now is for the lead time. Is that correct?
Correct.
We need the lead time. But that means that construction has to catch up.
Yes.
So that in order for us to lay the track.
Absolutely.
So what is the impact of the delay of construction and the laying of track? How is that going to impact?
We have two things. One, we have a 70% probability that the delays we've taken care of. We've got a plan to go forward with the current forecast of completion, with the increase in production of construction, and that is taken account in this program. We will revisit it when we have the revised baseline schedules in from the contractors and dealt with that. But also we have two options available to us as far as track. We have ballast system or the slab track system, and we will evaluate that as part of the process going out to comment to industry. We have left it open for them to review those scenarios. Now, obviously, if we had an engaged FRA, we could have further discussions as far as timing, etc., but that is not something we are able to do at this stage.
Well, my study of the tracking systems, the ballast track system
Yep.
is obviously less expensive to put in, but life cycle cost is a great deal more expensive.
Absolutely.
So if we go in with a slab system, it's going to be cheaper and probably a little safer.
Yep.
And that's kind of what,
I totally agree with you. I mean, that is the evaluation we need to make, taking everything into account in the next few months. And
and will
come
that
to
be
you.
coming to the board, Jim?
Absolutely. That is the business case. We need to have analyzed and made a decision and made a recommendation as an executive on which strategy we have taken. Yes.
So we're going to be asking for an RFQ then, an RFP.
We're going to ask for RFQ and RFP. Yes, correct.
But for today's purposes, all we're doing is we're looking at the schedule. We know that you're going to be coming back in
Yes.
June
If this-
for an RFQ, and then there will be another decision that the board will need to make one way or another come out to August with this
Yeah.
schedule with
And-
regards to the RFP.
Yes, and I want to assure
Okay.
you at this stage that the team, the executive team, are calling in experts from around the world, not associated with this program, to look at and do a peer review of those procurement specifications and the procurement strategy. So people that have dealt with slab track, dealt with ballast from around the world and signaling. Okay, so that was forward look. That finishes my part of the presentation. I'll hand over to Russ Fong, CFO.
Thank you, Roy. Get the clipper. So an important part of the baseline that Roy just mentioned is our budget, and I'd like to walk you through our two budgets, which is the cap outlay and our administrative budget. Let's focus first on our cap outlay budget, and that's on slide 15. No, there we go. Just to remind you, the cap outlay budget is our construction budget.
It was working fine when
I know, maybe you should hold on to it rather than that.
We're better at construction than...
We obviously are, yeah. Okay, thank you. Our cap outlay budget that keeps flashing on the wall there is our construction budget, and just to remind folks, it includes our right-of-way, design-build contracts, environmental clearance, third-party agreements, the RDP, the PCMs, and the RCs, and all other supporting construction contracts. Today, we're going to ask the board to approve two budgets. The first budget is our total program budget of $15.6 billion, which represents a 14% increase over last year's budget of $13.7 billion. And secondly, fiscal year 2019 and 20 annual budget of $2.3 billion, which represents a 26% increase over last year's budget of $1.8 billion. On slide 16 on the bottom of column G in the red circle, I'd like to highlight that. The total program budget reflects on slide 16 these three key areas. It includes the Central Valley, which is the cost of $12.4 billion. Phase 1 rods, which is the $1.1 billion. And the bookend investments of $1.3 billion. The bookend investments includes Caltrain, San Mateo and Rosecrans grade separation projects, and the LA Union Station. The $1.8 billion increase, or 14% of the budget increase from last year, represents three key areas. The first is additional contingency of $990 million, cost increases of $477 million, and scope changes of $362 million that Roy just went over. Secondly, we want the board to approve our annual budget, which is requested at $2.3 billion as reflected on slide 17 on the bottom of column G in the red circle. This year, at 75% of the year completed, we have spent 37% of our annual $1.8 billion budget of last year. Moving on to our administrative budget. This is on slide, the next slide over, 18. This is our budget that supports our state salaries and benefits and our standard operating costs such as rent, office supplies, travel, training, IT. Here the administrative budget is displayed by office. We are experiencing a 10% increase, going from $47 million to $51 million due to 10 new IT positions, along with some additional funds for IT tools. This chart represents who's spending the money. On slide 19 displays our admin budget broken out by line items. This reflects what we're spending the money on. This year, our admin budget, we spent at 75% of the year completed. We have spent 57% of our budget. Our lower than average burn rate is mainly due to our vacancy rate, which actually has come down from last month. Finally, I want to move over to slide 20. This reflects our state position count of 236 state positions broken out by office. In the May revised governor's budget process, we have requested an additional 35 positions in the contract management and financial areas. As of yesterday, I'm happy to say that both the Senate and the Assembly subcommittees approved this request, and we anticipate requesting more state positions next year. Finally, I'd like to draw our attention to the last slide. I believe it's slide 21. We are requesting your approval to change the CEO's authority to transfer project contingency as contained within the baseline to existing contracts for expenditures. The CEO will inform the chair of the board of directors on any transfers of project contingency above the level established by the board. Staff recommends that this level be $25 million. This concludes our presentation, and Roy and I would be happy to answer any questions.
I have one question, and then we open it up for other board members. On the approved staff positions in the May revise, what's the timeline for how soon we expect that they will be on board, and how confident are we that we'll be able to find the quality of people that we want?
So,
go ahead.
No, put the mic closer.
Oh, sorry. Could you hear that?
Yeah, so I heard the question. So the 10 positions will be established July 1st, or when the governor signs the budget, along with the 35 positions. We're currently recruiting those positions today, but as soon as the governor signs the budget, those positions will be actually funded. So we're looking at July, so hopefully sometime in July.
To fill them?
To be able to establish those positions, correct. But we are recruiting as of today for those positions to get an early jump.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board?
I have a question. What is the existing CEO authority on project contingency transfer?
So currently, the way the process works today is we have the 3 design build contracts, the CP1, CP2, 3, and CP4. The CEO currently has delegation to move contingency that we've done a Monte Carlo analysis on for each one of those 3 contracts to move contingency to the contract. We want to propose today is that same process, since we've done a Monte Carlo analysis for the entire Central Valley, is to give our CEO the ability to move contingency to existing contracts, and again, anything above our recommended $25 million will go to the board of directors in advance.
Okay, I got the process. The question was, what was the previous amount?
Once allocated to contingency, we have the ability to allocate any amount once it's allocated to those contracts.
Under the existing authority?
Under
So
existing.
you're now putting a limit of $25 million, or is this an increase?
No, we come back to you. Currently, we establish a budget. There's a baseline. We then come back to you and ask for money to be transferred to a specific contingency when we've done a risk analysis to a specific contract budget. Once we have that in that contract budget, we can allocate it and change the contract without limit.
Okay.
And what Russ is quite rightly saying is we now want to do that, but with an added checkpoint of anything above 25 million comes to the chair of the board.
Okay, I'm still a little baffled, but you bring those to the board?
No, we
not in the new
currently we
proposal.
do, yes.
Yeah, currently you bring each and every one of them, I assume?
Yes, well, hence what you've seen in the last.
Yeah, okay. All right.
So as I understand it, the difference here, as opposed to, as you pointed it out, Roy, when we have budget allocated to, let's say, CP 1, 2, 3, or 4, it's already allocated. What we've now got, if the board moves in this direction, we'll have a bucket with $990 billion in it that hasn't been allocated to anything. And
Correct.
so what we're talking about is the CEO's ability to pull
Microphone, sir.
So what we're doing here is
Turn it on.
we're being asked for here is so the CEO has the ability to take up to $25 million out of that bucket. Would be the threshold or the upper threshold of his authority. Beyond that, I think that there was some conversation that if there was a request for more than that, it would go to the board chair.
Correct.
For his advice on that, or at least
To inform the board chair.
it wasn't for his approval, I don't believe, but just you would advise him that that's what has occurred.
Correct.
The other thing I understand is that there will be incorporated in the monthly Finance and Audit Committee report, there will be a schedule identifying what has been taken out of this $990 million bucket since the last reporting period to the finance.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And also, just as another reassurance, is this process goes through our internal governance process of the Business Oversight Committee to the exec and through the F&A. So there is transparency, there is governance oversight. It is also worth pointing out there is a 25 million limit to new contracts. So, for instance, the tracking systems contract, when we come to you, regardless of if that's as it's over 25 million, we cannot issue a new contract over 25 million. The big thing there would be that, as we've just talked about, we would be committing the authority to perhaps 30-year O&M contracts. So all new contracts over 25 million still come back.
So this is just, in a sense, it's tightening up reporting to the board with regards to this $990 million.
Sorry, I do need this. The 1.5 billion is
Yeah,
the total contingency.
sure,
990
of course,
is the increase.
of course.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And because we have done a Monte Carlo analysis, as Russ said, for the whole project, as opposed to 3 individual contracts.
Okay. And just as regards the $990 million, without going into a lot of detail, we were, in the 2018 business plan, we were moving to a P10, and this is moving it to P70.
Correct.
And that's the basis of this. Was there a reason in the preparation of the 2018 business plan we didn't do it last year?
Yeah, I think we stated at that time, we said, we're given the information we have available to us at that time, we would not be able to do that detailed analysis, and the number we came up with, we would not feel comfortable with. We wanted to spend the additional time analyzing and to make sure that the P70 we came up with was the right and prudent number.
But the point is, then if you had that information last year, it would have been incorporated in the 2018 business plan and already accounted for in the budget for the 2018 business plan. The $990 million would have been in there.
Yeah, I see no reason why that would not have been the case.
Yeah. And it wouldn't have been such a dramatic increase now because it would have already been accounted for then.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was there if we had been able to calculate it. Okay.
Other questions?
Sir, before we take a vote on that issue, I would like to make a few comments. Listening to what the governor said in the more recent past, he talked about an opportunity for a fresh look and a transparent review of the segments that we're going to be funding. With that in mind, I would like to make a friendly motion to amend the recommendation to include this motion would direct our staff through the early operator to come back to this board at our June meeting, or certainly not later than July, with an analysis of a side-by-side comparison of the Central Valley, the Bay Areas, Los Angeles, and left any area, the LA corridor, Bay Area, Central Valley, side-by-side comparison. And this analysis should include the ridership, the greenhouse gas savings, the congestion relief, the near-term benefits and the completion date, and any potential for private investment and local matching funds, which I believe might be available. So I would like to include that into that motion and move that we accept that.
Can I ask a question about that motion? What's the side-by-side?
It would be a side-by-side comparison of each of the elements that we have described, the greenhouse gas savings, whether or not there's a greater need for congestion relief. I think the two bookends produce both the most congested areas in our entire route. And I think that looking at the Los Angeles area corridor and San Francisco presents tremendous opportunity to have some relief. If in fact we're going to look at funding any segment, then we should consider everything, all of the elements that we have described here. It's, you know, as I pointed out in jest, you know, I wasn't great in geography, but as I recall, the state of California doesn't end in Bakersfield. It actually extends to San Diego. So we should, in fact, look at those segments that we're talking about that may have some opportunities for this high-speed rail.
Mr. Chairman, second that motion.
There is a motion and a second. Any comments?
Yeah,
Questions?
I wanted to comment a little bit about the baseline budget, which I support, but I did have questions about the track and systems portion of it. I'm not an expert in that, but I thought we were getting a little ahead of ourselves. I realized the long-term issues there, but considering this amendment, and which I support, there may be some conversation about just how we proceed in general. I'm prepared to support the motion for the baseline budget, but it also helps deal with the concept of whether we're going to include systems in our going forward. And I know ultimately we are, of course, but so I think that it clarifies for me that question on the baseline budget.
Do you want to answer that?
Well, I think it was a heads up for what's coming, and it was not.
Yeah, I understand that we were going to get
and we
to
will
look.
come back to you with the full proposal.
We were going to get to look it over later,
Absolutely.
and so there wasn't really a lot of need for me to question that.
Absolutely.
But considering the conversation that's going on with this amendment, especially, it makes it easier for me to get behind this.
So what? Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Tom.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I hope this is on, yeah. The only thing I'm concerned about in what Director Camacho has requested is I'm at a miss right now to really be able to clearly define the complexity of the ask. And what I also heard was this is something that the management and staff was asked to come back for in 30 days.
Well,
So I don't-
Not later than July.
Okay, even 60 days. But you know, I don't know if there is anybody here at this point on a quick response, Brian, that can give us a sense of what management and staff will be needing to do in order to comply with this. It's pretty broad. I mean, you've expanded, you know, pretty much everywhere that we're reaching, and I'm not suggesting that's not appropriate. I'm suggesting that I don't know how that can be done in a 30 or 60-day period with some level of certainty that I'm sure you're looking for.
My initial conversations with staff has been that most of this information is there,
Okay.
and now it has to be a summary.
I don't know where
Well,
the CEO...
Brian,
Okay.
he's writing a
Okay.
question. So can I ask another question in the meantime while we're doing that? Is the budget that we're being asked today is at P70, and you said that that's staff's recommendation, that is the certainty with which at this stage in the project we should be aspiring for. Can you just in English, explain that to everyone
I
and
can't do
how...
I can't do that in English.
No, our English.
All right.
And how that compares to other project certainty at this stage of development. I think it's an important element to understand what risk is.
Let me cover the two things there. It is certainly the staff recommendation to manage this program at this stage with this budget with a P70. I do need to say you can have a P70 at any stage of a program. The money difference in the contingency is obviously much higher at the beginning of starting to refurbish your house compared to just putting the front door on. So this is the same with this. All big programs, from my experience around the world, manage at a P70. That's the management level to manage a program. So we would expect that to be the right level to have, but you can achieve a P70 at the very early part of a program and at the end of the program. Yes.
Okay. That's English. I'll
Okay.
accept that as an answer.
I actually understood that, so we're in good shape.
I'm practicing.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I also have just a question to make sure that staff understands the magnitude of the additional motion, if that's specific enough, or, okay, thank you.
Yes, to address, I guess it was Tom's question, what we need to do is we need to work with the early train operator and the board member to specifically pull out exactly what we need to review. So we'll get back to you with that. We will also need to work and do what we can, willing to work with the ETO on what options exist in the other corridors with the revenues that we currently have. And that's a big key of their original study. We should shoot for July with the commitment to report back in June on where we're at, if that's okay.
One more question related to that. This microphone is not
It's blinking. All
right.
the colors.
We, okay, this one's working, it's okay.
That's right.
We just, this is a little early warning of the power updates that are going to happen this summer with short shutoffs. The question was, can management conduct the analysis that Director Camacho asked for without distracting from delivering on the budget that the 119 miles that we're talking about today? These are separate people. I just want to make sure, I think it's important to have the transparency. I just want to make sure we're not distracting from delivery.
All three of us say yes.
Okay.
We're in total agreement.
Can I add one comment? I know the ETO is going to be authorized or expected to take a look at this, and I'm hoping they will reach out to the areas, the partners in those areas that we work with historically now, to see if they have this data in some capacity as well. And then they can analyze it,
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, I was going to make a motion.
Okay, may I just make one other comment? I think it should be clear from what Director Camacho is asking for that it doesn't get somehow integrated with what occurred at, and I don't mean integrated in that sense, but this is a separate request from what was just requested of our financial advisor an hour or so ago to prepare a business case for the Bakersfield to Merced alternative. So this is not something that's tying onto that, and it's a separate assignment, not one that's being proposed to be added to the KP.
Yeah, the answer is yes. We understand that. It is a separate exercise.
And we'll report back that in a second, Tom, as well, just to make sure for this board meeting we have that request. Okay. Any other comments or questions from board
Just to comment on your question, it should actually be easier since they've already accomplished the Central Valley. So we're looking at really studying the bookends and making a business case for it.
Is it the bookends that you're asking the side-by-side?
I believe so.
Yes?
Aaron?
It's the bookends.
Yes.
Yes? Okay, then given that motion, I'd like to incorporate it into a motion to approve staff's recommendation for the 4 board actions considering implementing the updated program baseline. And if you have something that I should be reading from, let me know. You can't, I don't, can you hear me? Okay. To accept the mitigation strategy dealing with the FRA, to approve the 2 contractual amendments with Parsons and STV, as well as the 7 budget adjustments to the updated baseline delivery plan, and then to approve the CEO's delegation of authority to manage project contingency within the updated program baseline of $25 million, provided that monthly reports are delivered to the Finance and Audit Committee specifying use of contingencies.
Okay. I'm going to ask one more time to the team sitting in front of me. Are you confident we can get that work done in the time frame that we are asking for the July report back with a update in June?
That is the goal. We said we would report back in June with an update to make sure that we are on track to do that, but that is what we're aiming for. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Can you call the roll?
Vice Chair Richards,
Yes.
Director Curtin,
Yes.
Director Camacho,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Chairman Donsa.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 3, the CEO report.